I want to wish my mom and dad a happy anniversary. I know some of you are like, so I can give you my birthday and anniversary, you'll announce it? No, I won't, okay? Only for them. They're the Trent makers. You're not. So, but I have a question for you guys. Anyone know what a mondegreen is? Anybody? Also, my mom reminded me of that today, so I thought I might get, I'm the third favorite son, so I might try to bump to get second or first. But anyone know what a mondegreen is? Anybody? No in the first service either? Okay. Nobody? Anyone? Anyone ever have lyrics you're singing along with and then someone with you in the car is like, that's not what they're saying? Anyone ever had that happen? Okay, well, that's what it is. So this morning, I was looking through a few. I remember, anyone ever seen remember the show According to Jim? Have any of you ever done anything in life? No, anything. No, I'm not even talking like just, have you ever walked outside your front door? Okay, okay, it's like... How about this? Who hates me and says I don't raise my hand because I think all your stuff is stupid? Okay, a lot more. Thank you. Fair enough. No. Yeah, so that's what it is. So there used to be a show According to Jim, and Jim Belushi, the main character. Long story short, his best friend's named Andy, actor in the show, and Andy loved Kiss, the band Kiss. So he's singing the song, and they're like on the couch, and he's just like going nuts, and he's like, the song Kiss is I Want to Rock and Roll All Night, and then Andy says, and part of every day. And Jim's like, wait a minute, what did you just say? He's like, I want to rock and roll all night and then part of every day. And Jim says, so you're telling me these guys are going nuts, like they're having the party of all parties, but they only want to do it for a little bit of the day. And he's like, I guess, I don't know. Like, I never thought about it. And he's like, no, they say, and we want to party every day. And you could tell he's like, I don't know about that, right? When I was a kid, Queen, like, we are the champions, we will rock you. I kind of think that may be the same song because it always plays right after the next. But either way, there's a part of that where it's like, you got blood on your face, you're a big disgrace. And the next line I thought was awesome, kicking your cat all over the place. Now, I never knew why the cat was wrong or what the cat did, but I'm like, if you're mad and there's a cat and you got blood on your face, I'm probably going to kick a cat too. That's not actually the line. But one of my favorites, and this is old school. All you, if you're like 40 and under, just who cares? You don't even know anything about this. But Bruce Springsteen actually wrote it, but Manfred Mann's Earth Band, Blinded by the Light. Anyone remember that song? Blinded by the Light? Yeah, a couple old school rocks out here, yeah. But that's the one I still to this day don't know. Blinded by the Light, revved up like a... Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't know what word they're saying, but it confuses me a little bit. So just to kind of recap, we're in week 4 of this Epic Life series. And what I want to share with you, we're trying to give you guys some tools. What's it mean to live as Jesus has called us? And Jesus is kind of like, hey, not only I'm asking you this, I want to live inside of you. I want you to live this life. But one of the phrases we use, and Phil brought this up last week, I thought it was real good. I kept telling you guys, tools are not rules. So tool basically, if it benefits you, man, run with it. If it doesn't, don't. That's how it works. But I like what Phil said last week too, is he talking about this up mentality and this Bible and prayer kind of aspect. And he said, it's not a task either. Like, it's not a to-do list. And I just thought that, like, as we talk about tools, they're not tasks, they're not rules, they're not do this so you can be the good Christian, or don't do this because that's what the bad Christian. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're just saying, how can we help you guys kind of get some simple handles on what it means to live like Jesus? So I think the next question would be, why? You know what, Trent, I watch the Christian people in the United States. I don't want to be like them. Now you're like, we're here, so maybe you do. But people watching online like, no, I don't want to be like those people, right? Well, what does Jesus offer? If you look at John 10:10, Jesus said this. He said, I came. Now think about this. Jesus said, this is why I came. So you could have real and eternal life. More, and I wrote this down, I underlined in my Bible, more and better life than they ever dreamed of. More. So I want to talk about today kind of the aspect of how epic life really is more. The thing that Jesus offers is more. It's more for you and for me. Okay? Now, I started kind of doing just church stuff, following Jesus at about 13. Okay? And what I learned probably 10 years ago, someone said it, I'm like, yeah, okay, it makes a little sense. Then I heard another guy kind of talk about the same concept, but this whole concept of what does more mean? And that's why week 1 we gave you this identity kind of triangle, because there's an aspect of Jesus' life, and I know you want to kind of fall asleep, but just bear with me just a second. There's an up, in, out rhythm of Jesus' life. Jesus knew without all three parts of that in his life, he was missing something. He was either missing purpose or people, or he was missing actually just how much God truly loves him. So up, in, out. So this little triangle I'll give you, and I just want to give you kind of three phrases as we look at this bless. And all bless is for us, just so you know. There's churches that talk bless, bells. I can give you 10 books if you're interested. But it's all just kind of simple tools like how do we kind of follow the path of Jesus. But I want you to see this love. Up, this rhythm of Jesus, Jesus realized he was loved by his Father more than anyone could imagine. And so are you. So it's not try harder, it's not do more, it's not double down, you're good, you're bad. No, he's like, you don't understand how much literally my Father loves you. And he's like, you're good because of what Jesus did for us. That's good news. But then as we look at the serve side, it's also loving the people in my life more. See, Jesus constantly was doing that. He was constantly thinking of ways he could serve and love others in his circle better because he realized we're called to be servants. And then the last one, Jesus said, he's like, hey, I'm here with a purpose and a mission. And what is that? To also love more people. So just if nothing else, as I kind of read this, kind of looking over it the last 5, 6, 7 years, I'm like, wow, no one's ever even talked about the rhythms of Jesus. Now go back and read his life, and you're like, you'll see it constantly. He's constantly living in this world of up, in, out. So just want to say that. So today, I want to talk about the center of it all. Yesterday, I'm watching football. It's like my happiest day. I'm on the couch. I'm looking at my watch. I don't have a watch. That was a lie. But I look at my phone, and I'm like, it's 5 minutes till noon. I can't wait for noon on Saturday because noon until about midnight that night, I can literally, if no one's bothering me, I can just watch college football for 12 hours. It's great, right? Well, my son, daughter, they're all in this weekend. And my son's there, and his girlfriend's there, and she makes the comment that she ate cinnamon rolls for breakfast. And it ruined my college football day. You know why? Because the whole time I was like, man, I want cinnamon rolls so bad. I just kept thinking about cinnamon rolls. Well, the reason I tell you that, this L and E we're going to look at today is literally the center of the cinnamon roll, the best part. And we're going to see that Jesus really operated this way. Well, how is that? If you want to love others better, I'm going to help you. If you're a parent, you know how to be a better parent? I'm about ready to give it to you. If you're married, you want to be a better spouse online, want to be a better kid, I'm telling you, this is so simple. Ready? If you want to improve relationships and you want people to feel loved around you, ready for it? It's so profound. Listen. Listening equals loved. It does. Listening equals love. I don't like to give a lot of old stories. My wife loves history, me not so much. But I did read this. It was interesting. A long time ago, there was a president, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And the story is he got real annoyed at all these dinners he had to go to. And he was telling like his right-hand people, like his cabinet, he's like, I don't know why we do this shake hands thing. Like, I literally have all these people lined up from all these countries. They shake my hand. They don't know what I'm saying. Most of them don't even speak our language. So it's like, it's a waste of time. So he's getting annoyed by this. So this is a true story. He actually said one day they had a dinner, they're all walking through, and he's shaking hands. And the very first person he went to shake hands with, he looked him right in the eye and said, I murdered my grandmother this morning. And he said the guy went, right, just kept going. He said, they said they're watching behind. He said it to every single person. I murdered my grandmother this morning. Shake their hand. Like, great, thank you, sir. Excellent. Good job, Mr. President. They're all just praising him, right? Said it went through so many different people. Then he finally gets to some dignitary, I think from somewhere in Africa or something. But anyways, he said this guy walks through and he said, I murdered my grandmother this morning. Everyone's just smiling, good job, thumbs up. And he said he shook his hand and he paused for a second. And he said, I'm sure she had it coming to her, sir, and walked off, right? Now, I tell you that because in all joking aside, that's us. That's us. That's me with my wife on the couch, and she's telling me this story about her day. Yeah, gotcha, right? That's us with people around us. Yeah. I got you. Just hurry up and be done. Why? Because I want to do what I want to do. But when you really listen to people, that's the best way you can love them. You know what one of the most unloving things you can do to somebody is refuse to listen to them. It really is. And I can prove that because you're just like me. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you can tell they could care less? They literally just want you to be done so they can move on. Yeah, that's the worst feeling in the world. And Jesus never did that. That's what's so profound about Jesus. There's in Mark chapter 10, I just want to read a few verses here. Jesus is walking through basically super crowded party scene. It's like a festival time. There's line in the streets. Everybody, it's loud, it's happy. And as he's walking by this crowd, there's a blind man sitting over to the side of the curb with a few of his friends. And he starts yelling, like, Jesus, son of David. So he's kind of calling him like, I think you're actually the Messiah. So that's kind of a big deal. He's like, Jesus, I need you to help me. And he keeps getting louder. And his friends are like, shut up, man. It's embarrassing. Some people are starting to look. This is what it says in the story, though. So interesting. Verse 49 says, when Jesus heard him, he stopped and said, tell him to come here. So they called the blind man. Hey, good news, man. Come on, he's calling you. So this blind man's name was Bartimaeus. He said, Bartimaeus threw aside his coat, jumped up, and came to Jesus, and Jesus healed him. End of the day. No. Yeah, he does. He does that. But I want you to see literally verse 51. Jesus looks at this guy. Now, let's pretend like I'm Jesus. Okay, I know. Kind of a stretch. But let's pretend like you're walking with me, okay? So we're walking down a crowded street, loud people everywhere, but we hear this one guy getting loud like, Jesus, you got to help me. Jesus, I need Jesus. It's like losing his mind. He's like, shut up. This is embarrassing. And so pretend I'm Jesus. I'm like, hey, bring him over here. So they walk over a blind guy who can't see. They're literally walking him, can't see. He gets close, and Jesus does something pretty profound. Look at verse 51. Jesus said, what do you want me to do for you? Does anyone else not think that's crazy? Like, if you're walking with me, you're like, hey, Trent, I think we know what he needs. I know he's a blind guy asking for help. We know what he needs. We can all assume that, right? The beauty of this, though, is that Jesus didn't assume for others. He didn't assume how people felt, what they needed, what they were thinking. So if Jesus didn't do those things, don't you think it might be wise that we don't either? Well, Trent, I would never know what they want or what they need. Yeah, you do, because that's what you do. You listen. You ask questions. I just read this morning as I was getting ready. In the book of Mark, there's 67 conversations, and well over 50 of those started with Jesus asking a question, and he just kept asking more questions. Jesus asked more questions than he did anything else. Why? Because he chose to listen. Now, I got to confess to you guys, you know what I'm guilty of? I'm guilty of not hearing. Notice the very first verse says Jesus heard him. Now, you know why I don't hear people? Because while you're talking to me, this is so sad to say, but it's so true. While you're talking to me, you know what I do? I don't listen to you. I'm trying to think about all the cool things I'm about to say back. Right? Anyone else ever done that? Like, even while they're talking, you're like, yeah. But the whole time, you're just trying to think about what you want to say and how you want to get your, like, whatever you're going to do. But that's not listening. Jesus didn't do that. He was locked in. And he looks at this blind guy, yelling for help, and he says, what do you want me to do for you? In that moment, everybody's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But Jesus didn't assume, so maybe we shouldn't either. So how do we help people feel loved? We listen. Second thing, eating equals loved. Eating equals loved. Do you know that? Eating always equals love. Jesus talked about why he came to the earth. I think it's like 4, 5 different distinct times. So one of the times he said this. He said, the Son of Man came eating and drinking. This is Jesus talking about himself. And they say, here's a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. So Jesus is talking to a group and he says, you know why I came? I would say I came eating and drinking. But you know what people are calling me? He eats too much, he drinks too much, and he hangs around with the wrong people. Now I want you to think about that for a second. Think about what Jesus got accused of. Now, think about modern day, 2023, Bible Belt, tri-state. What do we get accused of? It's not that. It's kind of sad in a way, isn't it? We don't get accused of being with the wrong people. So, oh, no, I'd never talk to them. Why? Because we're better than them, right? And Jesus is like, no. That's why they hate me so much, because religious people don't like who I hang out with, who I love, who I want to spend time with. That's how Jesus operated, and I think it's so genius. Why? Because he would sit down and he would eat with people and he would listen to them. Thinking about just eating and listening, I just read a story a week ago from India. It happened several years back. But there's a group of Americans that wanted to go fix this impoverished area in India. It was like over 30,000 people, just slums, terrible. So this like missions group in America comes in and they're like, we will build you hospitals. We will build you like an irrigation system. We're going to create economy. It's all good stuff. And they were talking to like the key 10 to 20 people in this community, and they're like, we don't want that. And they're like, oh my gosh, they're so dumb. They don't even know what they want. Like, no, let's explain again. We'll get pictures. We want this. And they're like, we don't need that. And they said, okay, what do you want then? And the leader of kind of this group of 30,000 plus people living in slums said, we want mailboxes. And literally, the Americans just kind of laughed like, what? And they said, in our country, if you don't have a zip code, you don't exist. They said, you can build all this stuff all day long, but it won't matter because no one will recognize it. We won't get more funding. We won't get help. Until we have a zip code, we don't exist in this country. And we just want to exist. Now, the reason I tell you that is because I think all of us come to that mindset of, let me tell you how to fix you. Let me tell you what you need. And Jesus looks at the blind guy, and what's he do? He says, what do you want me to do for you? So I want to share with you a quick story in Luke. But before I do that, I'm going to give you a self-confession. If you're watching online, all of you in this room, okay, this is bad. This is a true, like, we'll go Catholic confession, okay? I'll go ahead and move the thing over. You guys can be the priest. I'm going to slide it real quick and like, Father. Okay, so here's the confession. This is bad. My wife and I, our kids, have lived in Green Valley in Ironton for like close to 20 years. I've never said that so redneck. I'm like, we've lived for 20 years. Yeah? No, anyways, like close to 20 years. About 5, 6, 7 years ago, my wife is talking to our neighbor. My wife's friends with all these people. She's like out there all the time, weird, borrowing stuff, sugar, whatever. And she's out there talking. She comes in the house, and she's kind of laughing. I didn't think it was funny at all, but she said, our neighbor was talking, and basically our next-door neighbor to the effect said, yeah, like they're talking about me behind my back. Terrible. But as they're talking, said, he seems really nice, but I can tell, here's her quote, he doesn't like people. And as soon as she said that, I got real offended, like, what? I like people? What was she, whatever. And then it hit me, why would my next-door neighbor say, I seem nice, but I don't like people? You know why? Because when I drive home, I look to see if anybody's outside. If they are, I would fake I was on a phone call. Yeah, who are, I don't care. Because I don't need to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. And then I would literally, if they're still out and they're not giving me time, this is so awful, but it's true. Then I'd say, hey, Bob, what's going on? Good to see you. And I walk in the house and I'm like, I'm not even on the phone. Right? That's me. I don't want to talk to him. So my wife's kind of like, yeah, because you kind of are that person. Well, this has been 5, 6 years ago, and it kind of hit me, this isn't who Jesus was. Like, if I'm the example of Jesus in our neighborhood, the worst example ever. Because that's not him. He ate with people. He spent time. He would be busy, and he was like, but people still trump projects. And people aren't projects. So I was like, you know what? I need to get better at this. And over that course of time, our Cross Kids director, Alicia, I can give a lot of names, the Lukeses, Debbie Blood, they even started like the concept of dinner church. What's dinner church? They started a hotel over here, and then it literally got just completely shut down because they ran everybody out of this hotel a long time ago. Either way, what do? Literally sat down with people, eat with them, talk to them, listen to them. So as all this is happening kind of in my mind, I'm like, man, have I butchered this or what? So I made a decision. I was like, you know what? When I get out of my car, I don't care what's going on. If my neighbors are out, this is how socially awkward I am. I had to start with the very basics. I'm going to wave at my neighbors and ask how they've been. I know, profound, right? But literally, neighbors would be simple, hey, how are you? And then it hit me, I need to know their names. So then I spent about 6 months trying to literally figure out on my neighborhood, all these people live by me, what are their names? And here's my favorite part. So I'm going to flex on you guys just for a little bit, okay, just real quick. Probably 6 months ago, my wife's in here. I lie a lot. I lie most of the time. This actually isn't a lie. She said, she was talking to that same neighbor, and it was like maybe 6 months ago, and the neighbor said, he's changed. And she's like, Yeah. It's like, no, you really, I can tell he's different. He's different in how he talks to us. He's different in the neighborhood. Well, why? Because I realize I'm like, oh, I follow Jesus. What's that mean? I go to church. What? No, Jesus is like, follow me. Follow my life. Follow what this looks like. So I'm going to give you one example of that before we close shop, okay? Luke 19 says, Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region. He had become very rich. So he had exploited God's people, the Jews, to make money off of them. So the Jews hated tax collectors. They were worse than any prostitute, any sinner, any addict. You go down the line, to them, a tax collector is as low as you get. And God has to hate tax collectors. It says, so he's in a region, he became very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus. I feel his pain, but he was too short to see over the crowd. Now, even though Zacchaeus, this tax collector who's very wealthy and powerful, like we've said before, maybe Danny DeVito type, looks, here's the thing about him though. He knew the lower I get in life, the more I feel overlooked. Let me say this today. Let me say, if you're watching online, all of you in this room, if you don't hear anything, hear this. Here's the danger of when we start to feel like we are unheard, when we start to feel like nobody cares, you know what happens? The lower we get, the more overlooked we feel. So we got to fix that. So we do exactly what he does. This is so profound. It says, so he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road because Jesus was going to go that way. You know what you do? You do the same thing I do. We keep climbing trees. We keep trying to rise above. And what happens is we climb a tree and we realize, hey, that tree really didn't do it for me, or it wasn't high enough, or it wasn't that nice of a tree. So then we literally jump to the next tree and we climb it. And then we start thinking, why am I so frazzled and stressed? Because I have so many trees I've got to climb every single day. And Jesus is about to answer. He's like, I get you feel overlooked. And I get because of that, you took matters into your own hand and became the most powerful guy in this area. But notice what Jesus says in the very next verse. It says, when Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and he called him by name, Zacchaeus, quick, come down. I was listening to a book on tape called Strength on Strengths by Arthur Brooks, and he says this quote. I want you to hear it. If you're young in this room, because here's all old people, chill for a second. Young people, hear me out. He said this new generation, so my kids' age, Tayden and Tegan, so college age. He said, you can read every study. They do not connect with people anything like my generation did. They're struggling. It's isolation, it's depression, it's like so many different things. He's like, it's actually worse. It's worse than it was 20 years ago. And he says, here's what a lot of people think, social scientists and stuff. They say, because this is the generation that's probably the most special. And here was his phrase, and I thought this was so profound. He said, you have to choose, do you want to be special or happy? Specialness comes from achievement, but happiness comes from love. And he said, when you start feeling that I've got to do more, be better, climb more trees, be so special, he said, you create a force field that bounces off everyone else. And I started thinking about that, like that's so profound. But here's what's profound to me. Ready? I'm going to give you my second confession. If I'm honest, I would rather be special. I would rather be special than loved. I'm a striver. I want to do more. At the end of the day, I don't even think about any of you because it's all about me doing more, achieving more, being better. So if you really push me on it, you're like, well, what do you want? Do you want special or love? I want to be special. And this whole generation coming up, it's like we want to be special so much more than we want to be loved. But happiness only truly comes from being loved, from being vulnerable. So Jesus looks at Zacchaeus and he's like, hey, come down from the tree. Quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down, which is always awkward anytime a grown man tries to climb down a tree, in basically a robe/dress, and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. Now we're about to see religious people are about to get real ticked. So here's the thing I use all the time. I want you to hear it because it's so good. If you're watching online, just hear this, and you literally can walk out. I became a follower of Jesus when I was 13 years old. I had a lot of images of Jesus like many of you. I saw pictures of him petting a lamb. Everyone seen that one? I remember I walked into church once and he was looking up and he was holding a lamb, petting its head. So I was like, okay, he likes lambs, I guess. Almost every picture I would see him across, I saw those, and it looked horrible. But I'd also see he was always looking up this way, so he never looked at people. I'm just telling you, this is what I thought of Jesus. This is my only image of him, a few pictures, a little bit of Bible school. So I start reading the Bible. And for the first time in my life, being a 13-year-old kid that literally is the worst of the worst, it hit me. People who were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus. People who were nothing like him not only liked him, but he liked them. And it was the most profound thing for me as a 13-year-old to realize we've messed this up so bad that modern day, if you walk in and say, okay, that's the church group, this is the non-church group, what's going to happen? Well, I know they don't like each other, but more than anything, I know this non-group, my friends who want nothing to do with Christianity, they're like, no, I don't want any part of any of you guys because it's awful. And I'm like, then maybe we're not really following Jesus, because people who are nothing like Jesus liked him, and he liked them also. But look what happens with religious people. But the people were displeased. He's going to be the guest of a notorious sinner. Way worse than us. We can't do that. They grumbled. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I will give half my wealth to the poor. If I've cheated anybody on their taxes, I'm going to give back 4 times as much. Jesus responded, salvation, change has happened today. Your life's been changed for the good, has come to his home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. So what did Jesus do? What did Jesus do? I've read literally like scholars break down what they think Jesus said behind those closed doors, which is a complete waste of time because none of us know. But you know what I think Jesus did? I think it's very clear here. You know what Jesus did? He went to a guy that everybody hated, went into his house, sat down literally in his kitchen, and listened. And he ate. Can you imagine being Zacchaeus? You've climbed 1,000,000 trees in your life, and you keep climbing, but it's not enough. And then finally, you sit down with Jesus, and you're like, oh my gosh. And people around are like, yeah, good. He's going to call him out. He's going to light him up. Could you imagine standing across? Imagine you today. Maybe you're that. Maybe you've climbed a ton of trees, and you are tired, and you're exhausted, and you do not measure up. And Jesus sits down across the table from you today, and his first question isn't how disappointed he is. He doesn't look at you angry. He looks at you and says, why are you so tired? Tell me what you're struggling with. And I'm sure Zacchaeus was like, well, it actually started, you know me, didn't have a dad. I'm a kid, never picked. I'm tiny. Everybody's making fun of me. So I made a vow in 4th grade, no one will make fun of me one day. And for the first time, Jesus didn't go, oh, he was like, I get it. I get it. He looked someone in the eye and truly listened to them while they ate. And it changed this guy's life. You see, sharing meals is always more powerful than sharing advice. We had a family here that literally, horrible tragedy, God, I pray for them daily so bad. And I knew I was going to have to meet with them after this tragedy, and I'm sick at myself. I'm sick. I am literally sick that whole day because I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm going to look you in the eyes and say, I don't get it, and if I were you guys, I would walk away from everything. It's so awful. So the whole time I'm just praying, and I came up with a plan. I'm like, I don't know what to say to these people. It's so horrific. Someone said that one thing. You know what I did? I wanted them to tell me about this person they love more than life itself. And then after that, I said, I really want to just ask some simple questions. How are you feeling? What's going on with you guys? Now, when we finished that, here's what's profound, right back here. When we finished that meeting and they walked out, I can promise you one thing. It wasn't fixed. They weren't like, oh, everything's great. It wasn't, but you could tell they felt lighter. Why were they light? Because you must have said something great. I said nothing good. I listened. I asked a few questions, but I actually took time to care and listen. I'm telling you guys, if you do this, it changes everything. Everything. So I got a challenge for you, okay? Now I know you guys will scoff and be all against this, but there's hundreds of us who call ourselves C3ers. Hundreds. What would it look like over the next few months if we all made a decision, aside from our family, that I'm going to take one of my 21 meals and literally eat with maybe the people I work with, maybe people in my neighborhood, maybe some people that I've been thinking about lately because I know they're going through some tough times, maybe some people you know are struggling. Go down the line. It doesn't matter. You're smart people. Figure it out. But what would it look like if we literally all said, you know what? I will actually try to live like Jesus. I want to try to live like Jesus. Now, as we get ready to pray, I believe this. Some of you are like, I don't have time to eat. I will never do that. Okay, well, let's make it even simpler for you. What if this week you said, God, help me just to be aware of one person that really needs someone to listen to them? Not just listen, but actually hear what they're saying. We're known, if you talk to most people about Christians, what do they say? They talk a lot. They yell a lot. They are always about what they're trying to push out. But you talk, it's like, Jesus, you know what Jesus did? Listened. He listened. Now, as we get ready to pray and close out, I want to share a quick journey for me. I've spent, like I told you, almost 20 plus years in my neighborhood with people all around me, and I ignore them all. I avoid them all. I don't want to talk to you because I've got more important stuff to do. And like I said, over the last few years, I'm thinking through, like, this isn't right. This isn't what the life Jesus has called me into. So I made a decision. I need to slow down. When I get out, I need to say hi to people. When I'm walking through the neighborhood, even though I'm mad because I'm making killer time on my walk, to literally just stop. Take the earphones, earbuds, whatever you guys call them now, AirPods, earbuds, whatever. Take them out. Listen to someone. Well, over the course of the last several years, there's been one of our neighbor in a neighborhood in and out, a young guy that literally I would avoid. And my wife and my daughter is in here, they'll laugh about this. Over the course of the last few years, they make fun of me because they're like, we're pretty sure that's your best friend. That is literally your best friend. And we're talking about someone still young, 20s, had incredible problems with health, literally from birth. And because of that, it's affected so much. But as I've gotten to know my friend, I've actually listened. And if you would have told me a couple years ago, okay, Trent, how do we fix him? I would have gave you all the answers in the world. But you know, when he's been sitting in our house, eating, or when he's sitting out on the porch talking to me, you start to hear things and you're like, that's not what you need. And he told me, it's been a few months back. He said, the hardest thing for me is in the day, because he really wants to have a job. And he was like, the hardest thing for me is during the day when everybody's gone and I don't have anyone to talk to. Anyone. Now, why am I telling you that? Because you're just like me. We are so wrapped up in our stuff every day that we never slow down enough to say, who do I need to listen to? And all of you are like me. You're like, who cares? I want to do something big with my life, not something so small and unimportant. And I think Jesus would look at all of us and say, it might be the most important thing you do this week is slowing down to truly listen to somebody else. So here, if you would, just join me for a second. We're just going to pray. We're going to close our eyes for just a moment. Here's our prayer. God, I thank you so much for this group of people. I thank you for those watching online. But God, I pray a special prayer today. I pray for people in this room who are listening right now who've been burnt, who've been hurt by people in your name. God, I pray that you would forgive all of us for all the shouting and the loud voices that we are. And yet we never stop to listen to somebody else. God, I pray today that you would help us be more like your son when he walked the earth. That we'd take enough time to listen, truly listen, to ask better questions, and to realize this week maybe the most profound, loving thing that I do and everyone in this room would do would be to slow down and maybe listen to someone that no one else is listening to. Help us to be your hands and feet this week. Help us to be a group that when people think of you, they smile, because that's the example we bring. Help us to listen. Help us to slow down to eat. Help us to love the way that you have loved. So God, as we get ready to walk out of these doors, I pray that we'd all have the same prayer this week, that our trajectory would be changed. The path we're on would literally be changed because we're looking at people you're bringing our way. Maybe it's this week, maybe it's this month, but God, help us to see people that simply need someone to care about them and to listen to them. And I pray that we are those people. Thank you for giving us life, brand new life. We thank you that we don't have to work harder. We don't have to do more. You already did all this for us. That's the good news of this whole church thing, this gospel thing, is that you did it for us. And now you want to live through us to live a life that really counts when it's all said and done. Help us to live that life today. Thank you for giving your life so we could have life in you. We ask these things in your name, and amen. Hey guys, listen, so glad that you're here today. Have a great week. Listen to somebody this week. Maybe take time, have lunch with them. We'll see you next week for week 5. Take care. You can set us free.